Do it in a second.
All right.
So, can you just say one thing so we can see
I
if
can
this is.
say two things if you need me to.
Ah, okay. I believe.
Let me close my door, actually. There's a fan in the hallway that's kind of loud, so. And I apologize for my squeaky chair.
That's all right. Let me just post on Twitter that we are live, live, live. Okay. The last thing we need is to have Super Stonk up. And aha, it appears the stream is working. Isn't that just outstanding? There we go. So, people rolling in.
I need to get my graph up for GME, so I have it in the corner here.
That's good. Yeah, get the ticker up. That's key actually right now.
Yes.
Let's make sure that people know. Actually, let me get the ticker up as well while we're at it. So, right before we get started, is everybody in? What have we got? 33. That's not bad to start the day off with, is it? Chat. Let's open that chat up and see what people are saying. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Welcome to take number 2. And hopefully everything is going to run just beautifully smoothly today as we attempt to take you through. Oh dear, as the ticker gone down. Yeah, you did actually. You did. You opened it and we're down 50 cents. So don't look at it.
It's usually my fault.
So,
yep.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back. Houston, after Monday's disaster, I am very, very hopeful that we can get some better content out there for people who are tuning in.
Crossed.
Yeah, to find out about GameStop. So, a little word from our sponsor, me. Go buy my book. And so, to kick us off, what have you made of the price action today? So, for people who need to have a look here, the current price action is $29.81 or something around that. So, what do you reckon, Houston? What is driving the price upwards today?
I think it's probably delta hedging starting to happen.
Okay,
and we'll probably get more of that tomorrow.
Okay, and what is delta hedging for the uninitiated?
Basically, it's the hedging of, oh crap, we've got all these options in the money. We need to go find some shares just in case these do trigger at this price. So if the price stays up like this, I don't have the options chain right in front of me, but oops, that did not take me to the options chain. So the hedge, the market makers, the options writers, they're going to have to on the money on Friday. And last week, Max Payne was around like $21.50, somewhere around there. And so that means basically the market makers and options writers are set up to like do their best and profit the most when it hits Max Payne. And the people who buy options and puts are going to lose money in overall. And I'm not quite sure what Max Payne is at the moment, but I wouldn't doubt if at the beginning of the week it was probably still around $21, $22, and we're almost $8 above that. And we've got from the $20 mark, so that's 3,000, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, about 40,000 contracts from $20 up that are in the money. And that represents about 4 million shares that they may or may not have at the moment. So they're probably going out in the market. They're probably picking some up. There's probably FTDs from yesterday that they're trying to make good on. So, I mean, if we jump to $30, it puts another 1.7 million shares in the money at the $30 level. So they're trying to keep it below $30 probably by Friday. But if tomorrow it's still touching this level, there's going to be even more purchases of options. So it's, it's fun. So we're getting that push now. We're getting everyone's jumping in. The FOMO's happening. People who never talk to me about stocks ever are sending me messages on Facebook like, "Hey, what's up with this GME thing?" So it's in the public consciousness again, and that's just like January 2021.
Yeah, can't really argue with that. I mean, it's very, very exciting to be in the position that we are in. I can't quite believe it at times. It's that 3.5 years down the line, we're still here. And did you see the reactions from people like Kramer and CNBC just like keep getting wilder and wilder and wilder, right? I don't know if you saw the thing today. I was just trying to find it to pull it up. Oh, here it is. While I'm gonna share this with you because it's absolutely unbelievable, and I think people should see this if they haven't already. I mean, I'm sure many people have seen it on Twitter or whatnot today. But let me just share the screen, and I'm gonna also share audio. Yes. Okay, so this should work beautifully. Ah, yes, here we go. Screen share for everybody. And so this is what our esteemed Mr. Kramer had to say to the SEC head, Gary Gensler.
Is this a hypothetical?
Totally hypothetical. Because I don't want to, I don't want to really try to hurt anybody.
Why not? Can't we just ask about Roaring Kitty? I mean, why wouldn't we?
If someone publishes...
Dave, you ask about a specific thing. I just want to talk to your viewers for a second. The SEC runs a civil law enforcement agency. We're a cop on the beat, and you would expect us to investigate where we investigate, right. But we don't talk about it publicly because we follow the facts and the law, and only if we think there's something to bring in front of a court do we then talk about it publicly.
Hence how hypothetical.
Understood.
Let's say you're Paul Weiss, you're my lawyer, okay? I say to you, look, I want to put up a cryptogram. And it's of a chair leaning up, which we know from video game playing means, come on, this is the 9th inning, get ready. And we know that I'm a person who happens to like the stock of GameStop. This is the signal, come on, get ready. Is this something, hypothetically, that the SEC should worry about?
So, look, again, it's not so hypothetical because you're describing things that are in the public domain. And
yeah, and it basically continues like that, but it's the most unbelievable stuff. Like, he's getting so desperate. He's like, so
all of them are so desperate.
It's like, so he posted a picture of him leaning forward. It's like, isn't that market manipulation? Please, Gary, let it be market manipulation, please.
I mean, but a short seller coming on and bad mouthing the stock on CNBC isn't short manipulation at all.
No,
yeah, it's not manipulation. That's totally like,
him
totally legal.
Him literally.
A picture of an Uno card, send the man to prison for 30 years, like take off his thumbnails, jam razor blades in his eyeballs. Like, just, it's such bullshit. Like, we knew this was going to run. And he basically proved that their position is so precarious that him controlling 17 million shares will obliterate 100 hedge funds. Like, if you're that weak, you should get out of the business. It's like, you ever had a missionary of some kind come to your door, like a Mormon or Jehovah's Witness or whatever, and not to badmouth particular religions, but I love to entertain them when they come to the door, because I've got behind me lots of books, right? And among those books are basically every religious text ever written. And if I got the time, I invite them in, I bring all those books out, I set them down. I'm like, hey, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? They're like, oh, no, we're not allowed to read that. Like, okay, have you read the Satanic Bible? What? No, God, goodness, no, I would never read that. Like, have you read the Quran? Have you read, have you read, like, you just go through them all, and have you read, Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health? Like, what have you read? And what it comes down to is we're not allowed to. I'm like, well, if your belief is so tenuous that being challenged by anything outside of that would absolutely destroy your faith, then you're in the wrong faith. So if you're a short seller and somebody's belief in this stock would absolutely obliterate your holdings and send you, to the point where you're working as a valet at the country club, then you're on the wrong side of this thing. Like, tough shit. Deal with it.
I will, and honestly, it really confuses me that the E-Trader being such dickheads, because it seems like perhaps they're being lent on by Morgan Stanley, and I want to maybe talk about, because someone mentioned that Morgan Stanley are being investigated for insolvency, and I literally just read that like a minute before I came on. So
and I think the rumors or the speculation that E-Trade doesn't have the shares. They basically sold 12 million naked calls, and they're probably threatening him the day before or on Friday, and they're probably saying, hey, we're going to kick you off of here because we think you're doing manipulation. And that's why he probably posted Sunday night, was not because like, hey, look at my position, let's run this thing. It was probably like, I need 5 million witnesses to know that I have this stuff in my account so they don't nuke it.
It continues to amuse me. Scott Pollen has just posted in the chat, said, hear me out. What if major traders needed to post all their trades? Ooh. I mean, would that defeat a lot of the subterfuge and like fakery that goes on in terms of like spoofing and bullshit they might talk on CNBC, or like, do you think that would eliminate that, or do you think? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Seeing where the whales go, there might be some qualms about like protected, industry secrets and things like that. And there's a reason why when people get 5% of a company, they're required to post it. Why institutions are required to post it, but like a family fund, not allowed. Not does unless if they're under 10%, they don't have to post anything. So, they get to keep it all secret. And if a lot of these hedge funds, I bet, are also, running brokerage accounts out of the Caymans, out of the Bahamas, out of Cyprus, out of Aruba, out of Belize, and they don't have to post anything. They can be picking up huge swaths of companies and never post a single solitary position because they're not inside the United States. Therefore, they are legally not obligated to follow the U.S. rules. And the brokerages might have to report it for them, but again, those brokerages are outside the U.S., so they're not going to do anything. They might get a slap on the wrist from the New York Stock Exchange or something, but as we can see, the slaps on the wrist pale in comparison to how much money they make through the subterfuge. So, it's I would be okay with having to post your short position if you're an institution or hedge fund, having to post that. I think if you're trying to take a company down, or you believe a company is going to fail, you should have to post your holdings just like you do your holdings in that, just like you do your collateral. You can basically find out what any hedge fund has as their collateral on any given day, but you can't figure out what it is they're shorting. And to me, that's a double standard.
Definitely. It's funny. There's nothing that I can find in the news here about this Morgan Stanley thing. Although, interestingly, apparently, Bill Hwang was looking to add Morgan Stanley to the Archegos trial in some way. What's it saying? Bill Hwang. Let's have a read of this. Bill Hwang, blah, blah, blah. Bring up the probe of Morgan Stanley blocking trading leaks in an attempt to bolster his defense. Witness. They executed more than $5 billion of block trades for Archegos. Ooh. Justice Department sought to paint Huang's use of swaps as a deliberate attempt to quietly corner big positions in companies and manipulate it. Have you, I don't know, Houston, have you ever heard of swaps being used to manipulate the price of a stock?
Well, man, when would that be happening? Like where have we seen that before? Because for people who don't know these swaps, you got bullet swaps and equity swaps and debt swaps, and I mean Scott Pollan has been posting to his LinkedIn describing all these swaps are. But the most hand wavy way I can do it is you take a huge short position on something, you got a boatload of liabilities, and those liabilities are coming due. It could be because you sold naked, T35 is coming up. It could be because the stock price is remaining too high, it's not dropping fast enough for you. So you might have your lenders being like, hey man, give us some money. And what you do is you package them up into the swap and you ship it off somewhere, and somebody else agrees to take it on for a while, and you pay them sort of like interest or a fee for however long that swap goes for. And a lot of times these bullet swaps are like 2 years, somewhere around there. And so you get to like pretend like it doesn't exist, like for that amount of time. It's not, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a giant short position in GameStop. And but you're paying, let's say 100 million a year, $1 billion a year in fees or interest on these swaps, and while they're being held by somebody else, some weird Brazilian fund or whatever. And they bounce around like crazy. They get traded just like anything else. Because people love to collect those fees, and then after 2 years, you just like, it's not mine anymore. It goes back to the original dude. I collect all these fees and it's gone. And they can sort of hide just how much liability they have every time they jettison one of these swaps. And what we're probably seeing is a whole bunch of swaps coming due. The liability on them is huge, and I don't know if anyone would be willing to pick up the risk on it, or if they do pick up the risk, if the other party whose debt it really is can afford the interest or fees on it, because there's interest rates are insane, and that means fees are going to be insane. So this supposed $87 billion in swaps that expired yesterday, they're probably paying 1% on that, so $870 million a year or whatever. But now maybe it's 8 or 10%. So right, so they're going to be paying like $8 billion a year for the same amount of liability. Like that stuff's going to be nuts. So who's going to be able to afford the fees on it, and who's going to be able to take on that risk? I don't know. So Huang was absolutely brilliant at pitting all these investment banks against each other. Basically what he was doing, and this is the whole reason like the ISDA had all these different new rules that come out, but he had like $800 million fund, not that big, but you can borrow 30 to 1, right? And so he went to like Nomura in Japan. He's like, hey man, I got the $800 million fund. Can I borrow 30x on that? And Nomura's like, no problem. You're a family fund. You got money. Here you go. And then he went to like JP Morgan. He's like, hey, JP Morgan, I've got $800 million family fund. Can I borrow 30x on that? And they're like, no problem. Hey, Credit Suisse, can I? And he went to 5 different investment banks, borrowed almost the max at all 5 of them, and then lost his shirt. and the American banks, Goldman and JP Morgan, I think were the first to get out, and Nomura and Credit Suisse were the last to get out, and they're the ones that are hurting the most. And he's basically taken down the entire nation of Switzerland just with an $800 million family fund. It's pretty insane. Like the UBS, like, okay, Credit Suisse, we'll take it on because the Swiss central bank is asking us to. Swiss central bank is posting like $150 billion a year losses right now because of this, and UBS takes it on, and they're like, fuck, like, oh, we have so much liability. How are we going? We don't have enough money to take care of this. We don't like the Swiss people don't have enough money to take care of this. They're a small country. It's a giant bank. I think it comes out to something ridiculous, like $50,000 per Swiss citizen to handle the bags that Credit Suisse now has under UBS that all came probably from Archegos. And that's just one family fund. There's 7,000 family funds as big or bigger around the world. They're probably doing really similar things. There's, $7 or $8 trillion in margin to those family funds. It's wild to think about, like, how much liability is out there. Yeah.
Sometimes you sort of like, you can lose track of what this means because the numbers are so obscene and massive, and it's wild when you actually like try and wrap your head around like the amount of debt and money that gets created in this system for people to just play with for fun and with no checks.
Yeah.
Like if I want to get a credit card, normally you have to get like checks, background checks. You want a mortgage, background checks. Leverage 30 to 1 on some family fund. Be like, go right ahead, sir.
Exactly.
Like, have you done this in any other bank today? No.
No, it's great. Like, you want to buy a house, your collateral is usually the house. So you put some money down, and then you have a house that's worth as much as the loan they give you. And then they're really stern about, you got to make sure you do all this and do that. But
why? Honestly, yeah, right. Why? Because if they sell you the fucking mortgage, right? Or if they give you the mortgage and you buy the house and you pay your mortgage even for 24 years, right?
Yeah.
And there's like $100 left on the fucking thing, and then you go broke. They can still take the fucking house off of you.
Yeah.
Right?
And they'll make a profit off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
but if you're a hedge fund, you've got $1 billion in US Treasuries, they will give you $30 billion, and when you eat shit, it goes like the liability goes straight to the bank. The bank's like, oh no. Oh no, Uncle Sam, I need you to print as much money as possible because I just had a hedge fund go down, or I just had a giant mortgage-backed security go down, or I owe so much on these derivatives. It blows my mind. Like, JP Morgan has 4,000 plus hedge funds under them. Goldman Sachs has 4,000 plus hedge funds. Merrill Lynch has something, 3,000 somewhere around there. Every single one of these hedge funds is maxed to the hilt. And almost all of them are in the same exact place as each other. They all buy up NVIDIA. They all buy up Google. They all buy up Facebook. They all buy up US Treasuries. And, the SPY explodes because those like 7 tech stocks are the entire SPY. And then they short the same basket of retail. Like XRT, anything that's in XRT, you short the shit out of it. But you've got 8, 9, 10,000 hedge funds doing the exact same thing on the exact same stocks again and again and again and again. That's why if this thing blows up, it's taking out everyone. There's not a single solitary hedge fund that isn't infected in some way by this.
Because they're all short XRT, you reckon?
Yeah.
And like when you talk about like Merrill Lynch or Morgan having these hedge funds under them, you mean so is it essentially like front point
broker?
Like is it basically like Steve Carell's dudes in like where they're like on the Morgan Stanley books, but they're not technically owned by Morgan Stanley, but like
they're the Morgan Stanley's the prime broker lending, like giving the margin to these funds and family funds and hedge funds and stuff.
Yeah.
And like let's just say a hedge fund goes under. They have $1 billion in assets because that's an easy math. Okay. $30 billion in liabilities. They get liquidated. They sell everything for $1 billion. Right? Okay, now there's only $29 billion in liability. That liability all goes to Goldman or whoever lent them the money. And now Goldman's got to figure out where to come up with $29 billion. Right? That's the problem that Credit Suisse is under. I think it was $27 billion that Credit Suisse had from Archegos liabilities, and now UBS has. And they don't have the money, especially since, commercial real estate is dog shit around the world. So all of these small banks and large banks, anyone that put any money into commercial real estate is down 70 to 90% on every single solitary office building on earth. And, they can't quite look at their books and go, okay, we can sell off these assets or find somebody to buy them, because who's going to buy them? If they buy them, they're going to buy them pennies on the dollar. So, I don't know how much you keep up on the commercial real estate, but every single day is another gigantic office tower in some major city in the world that, there was a $500 million bond that defaulted, and the building just sold to auction for like $22 million. Like, it is so bad. And the banks are doomed. Even the small banks are doomed. The large banks are doomed. They're all doomed at this point. And we're just sort of like elbowing them in the ribs the entire time, laughing, because we know that they owe us a lot, and that Goldman has $600 trillion in liability through derivatives or something ridiculous like that. It's like orders of magnitude more than the entire global GDP is what Goldman has in liabilities through the derivatives market alone. Just multiply that to every single solitary investment bank on earth, and you're going to have like a Mad Max future or something.
Yeah, I mean that hopefully not. I mean, I would like to survive beyond, the next few years. It would be nice to have a retirement and that sort of thing. But we're back above 30. We're in the par hour.
Oh, yeah, 30-60.
There we are, lovely. I've linked Scott Pollan's bullet swap article here in the chat for anyone who was curious about it. He's just said, and then if you just search Scott, he's got like a bunch of different articles about total return swaps and equity swaps and interest swaps and variance swaps and all the kinds of swaps that I have no idea what that means. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that old thing about it feels like the complexity is on purpose to make things seem complicated and make the financiers feel needed. So the next thing that I want to talk about, we'll come back to GameStop, but the next thing I want to talk about was sort of crypto more broadly, because there has been declarations from 2 of the 3 main candidates for president. Or well, one of the 2 of the 3, depends if you count RFK as a possibility. They've both come out and been like, yeah, we want people to have their wallets and they want private custody. And what do you think is going to happen to the crypto as a security? Because nothing will happen until the next election, basically. Yeah. And then they'll make their decision. So what is your feeling about what might happen?
Well, personally, I think that there needs to be some sort of regulation, some sort of regulatory body, simply because the number of scams is insane. And the amount of rug pulls and Ponzi schemes, and because it's Wild West, you can do whatever you want. And there's no legal authority really who can bust you, especially if you're incorporated outside the United States in particular. If you're incorporated in one of these banking safe havens, it's free game, man. You can scam anybody you want. And it's been really weird, like looking at the legislation that keeps getting put forward in Congress here in the US about possible regulation. No, we'll never regulate it. It's not a security. It's a piece of property. It should be a security, And until you get some sort of clarity, I think we're still going to have the scams galore. I mean, like Martin Shkreli gets out of prison, makes his own coin, and then rug pulls everybody like 4 days later. Like, just absolute, like that's a crime, but it's not, because there's no rules against it in crypto. So yeah. You got US dollar tether coin, which I've talked about for a few years now. When the feds went looking for the money, they found 3 cents on the dollar. Like, there's a bank account in the British Virgin Islands that had like, $2 billion in it, and it was supposed to have 80 billion. But the U.S. government hasn't been able to do anything about it. And US dollar tether coins board keeps coming out with this like, oh no, we just had an auditor audit us. And the auditor's like, we didn't audit them. We just signed their attestation saying that this is what they claim they have. When you start talking to other coins, like, you're fired. We'll find another auditor who will claim we have what we need. And you can look at when US dollar tether coin mints coins, GameStop flies. There's a 271% correlation to tether coin minting and sorry, not GameStop, Bitcoin flies, and between tether coin minting, Bitcoin flying. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is that these guys mint $1 billion in coin, $5 billion in coin, whatever, and they buy Bitcoin with it. Bitcoin skyrockets, and then they slowly sell it over the next few months for cash and not US dollar tether coin. And then they do it again. and again and again. I mean, there's $100+ billion in market cap now for US dollar Tethercoin. It's basically a legal way to make counterfeit US dollars. Like, this is worth 1-to-1. It is not a US dollar, but we treat it like one, and we can make them out of thin air, and there's nobody who can verify that we actually have the cash to back this up. And and then on top of that, you have these folks who are like, Bitcoin's the future. We're going to be able to, like, it's freedom. Okay. 97% of Bitcoin is owned by 1% of wallets, and it's consolidating further every day with these ETFs that are happening now. ETFs have bought up gigantic chunks. So you're gonna have all this freedom, right, for these 21 million coins that exist, but 97% of them are owned by 1% of wallets, and the majority of those are now BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, like these huge institutions that are buying it all up for the ETFs. And okay, how are you going to use that as a currency if that's the case?
They're not in it for the privacy or the defeating central banks. Like, exactly. They're in it to probably pump it. And to if it is a hedge in some sense against the collapse of the dollar, then they're going to be sitting pretty. But realistically, if the dollar collapses, BlackRock are probably still going to be fine. Like,
exactly. Well, when you're an index fund who owns 7 to 9% of every company on Earth, you're generally going to do okay.
Yeah, quite a vast amount of land as well.
Yeah.
Farmland and real estate, like housing stock. It's concerning. But yeah,
and they're starting their own exchange with Citadel in Texas. Their own stock market.
Yeah, what is going on there?
Maybe they're planning on Texas seceding from the United States again.
Well, stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
BlackRock, Citadel, Exchange. Let's see what Brave Search has to tell us, because I try to not use Google too much, because screw Google. Then they have all the stuff and all the good search. That's the biggest problem. Their search is just superior. I try and use Brave. Look at the Brave browser and everything. Don't give all your data to one company, but then you end up using the fucking search anyway because it's just better. Here we go. Okay, so there's plenty of context things, so we'll not assume this is bullshit. A group backed by BlackRock and Citadel is planning to start a new national stock exchange in Texas, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. That's why I can't read it, because it's in the Wall Street Journal. The Texas Stock Exchange, known as TXSE, has raised about $120 million and plans to file registration documents with the Securities and Exchange Commission later this year. The exchange aims to facilitate trades in 2025 and host its first listing in 2026. Blah, blah, blah. It's not the first challenger. However, the exchange is backed by BlackRock and Citadel. That would suggest that it's got at least a few quid behind it. How is this going to be different to one of their own dark pools that they just use anyway to do this stuff? Or is this going to be...
I think it's their attempt to take to entice some blue chips and tech stocks away from NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. That'd be my guess.
Okay.
Because BlackRock owns 7 to 9% of everything, so they might as well own the exchange too, right? And a market maker all of a sudden owning an exchange seems like a big giant conflict of interest. So it's, I don't know. But send Keith Gill to prison for posting a fucking meme.
Yeah, that's the illegal market manipulation we need to deal with. Someone says bold of Citadel to assume they'll be still around in 2025, 2026. Oh, 17,000 calls at $30 are now in the money.
Ooh, 30.90. We just pushed over 31 a second ago.
Lovely. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Looking at my options here. How are we doing? Ooh, okay. All right.
We're going to go to the moon.
Nice.
I'd love to go and buy some options in the same way DFE did, but I just have no idea. I feel like I would click something and suddenly owe the same amount of money as the GDP of Liechtenstein. It's Yeah, just I'm too scared to go into options. I just like I'll buy my shares and I will sit on them. DRS some of them. But I guess we'll see what happens. So right, what were the other things I wanted to talk about? I had a list.
Perfect.
Here we are. So the return, the swaps, T+1, the acquisition. Oh, this we covered the other day. Okay, so the acquisition.
Yes.
So obviously we discussed the other day about what we thought they might buy. You said maybe BBBY. I've seen people say they should buy Toys R Us, which would be fucking hilarious. I saw Lego suggested, but unfortunately we don't have that much money.
Well, there was a sale. So it's a family that owns Lego, and there was a private sale to an undisclosed buyer last fall, I believe, for around $900 and something million. And I've wondered who.
No, wait. There's no way Lego is not worth.
No, it's just one of the family members who owns it. They sold their
chunk.
chunk.
Okay. I was gonna say surely Lego is worth more than
Lego's
that.
about a $9 billion year company, so their value is probably at 60 billion, perhaps 30 to 60 billion.
According to Lego, apparently the Lego brand is worth 7.9 billion.
That's it.
Let's have a look. What's Wikipedia saying? The Lego Group, blah blah blah. Revenue 40 billion kroner. Why are you giving it in kroner? I want it in dollars or pounds or some currency that normal people use.
Doesn't help that there's like 7 different kroners.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what were we saying? Revenue, operating income, net income, total assets. None of them are really the value of the company, are they?
Yeah.
Sales amounting to 2.1 billion. Right. Well, we're gonna say somewhere in the range of roughly what you said, 60 billion. So unfortunately, it's not going to be Lego. But like one of the questions that I've seen asked, and I honestly had this as well, is so when say okay, so you're sitting on 2 billion in revenue, and then GameStop go and acquire new company X for 1.85 billion. Okay, just hypothetically, and then some Bitcoin to hedge their bet.
Yeah.
Anyway, what typically happens to a company when there is a merger or acquisition in that sense? Because I've seen a lot of people talking about share recalls, about like spikes in the prices, about like you'd have to do swaps on a lot of the shares for like the new company and the old company, in the same way that there was all the controversy around TLP. Yeah, someone's just put costs as a potential thing that might acquire, which is interesting because I think they just were partnering with them on a headphone.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting. But yeah, so like could you tell us a little bit more broadly about what happens when a company gets acquired or there's a merger, and like what tends to happen to the stock price? That's the key. Like what's the
a host of things can happen. So you can buy a company outright, like just a full-on acquisition, right? So like when Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion or whatever, they just bought the company. Now it's theirs. It wasn't publicly traded. It was just a privately owned company at the time. So they just straight up gave cash to the 16 people who owned it, and those guys got drunk and had a party. And now Facebook, makes $30 billion a year in advertising on Instagram. Same thing happened with YouTube when Google bought YouTube for $1 billion. Just bought it. Then you've got companies that they have much more of a synergy. They come together because they're both publicly traded. They may do like, okay, company A, their stock is $40 a share. Company B, their stock is $10 a share. We will do a favor to the company that we're merging with, and we'll do a 3-to-1. That way the shares, the $10 shares become a $13 value, and people kind of come out as a winner. You can do a hostile takeover where you just buy up all the shares in the market, do a proxy fight, and just take over the company, or buy up all their debt or whatever. So it really depends on who is doing the buying and what kind of acquisition it is going to be. Like one of my thoughts is GameStop sort of acts like a hedge fund, or an equity fund, I should say, and they just buy up a whole bunch of blue chips. And so they spend $1 billion. Maybe they merge with a company like Cost or something, or acquire Bed Bath and Beyond for the Knowles for the net operating losses for taking after taxes. But they take $1 billion and they buy Amazon or Apple with it, and then you've got this set value that just grows every year and collects dividends. And if you want to short a company like GameStop, you're gonna have to short one of the big boys like Apple or Amazon. So there's so many possibilities. It's
Is
really,
that something
really,
that
really
is
hard.
is that something that companies do often, like buy like a handful of shares in other like big players in order to like?
Just look at institutions and banks. They all own each other.
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, so like financial institutions, I can see that happening, but like, is it like a standard thing for like a retail company, or like, say, like a tech company to go and be like with Facebook, go and be like, okay, well, we'll take like a little bit of X, give us a little bit of Twitch, yeah, we'll take some Microsoft, like some Apple, like, are they buying their competitors in?
That's what happens when they turn into a holding company like Berkshire Hathaway. That made socks.
Didn't GameStop just register as a holding company?
Well, Teddy's registered as like a holding company, I believe.
Yeah.
So they could switch over and at any moment.
Well, yeah. Or I mean, I guess they could send the money to RC Ventures because he's that's who owns. Well, that's who Ryan that's how Ryan Cohen has purchased a lot of his shares.
Yeah. And the agreement that Ryan Cohen has with GameStop basically says, I will direct GameStop's investments, and I will put my own money in to prove that I agree with this investment. So basically, you're getting a 2-for-1 on that.
Yeah. There's some super stonk posts about this being a thing, but I'm not sure. GSC.
There's always lots of jokes about like Apple's the largest hedge fund in the world that just happens to make computers, or you got Disney is a law firm that makes cartoons.
Well, that's the one. The joke is everything's a tech firm these days.
Yeah.
GameStop is shifting to a holding company. Is this true? It's on the street. It says GameStop is shifting to a holding company model with a new investment policy granting CEO Ryan Cohen expanded authority. Yeah, so they are. So yeah, because this is what I saw, that like Ryan Cohen had been given like authority to make purchases on behalf of the company, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the original filing just to make sure we understand this.
Yeah, one of the puns people were doing, we're calling it Gameshire Bathaway.
Saw that. Black Udon says, this stream started 44 minutes ago, but only the last 8 minutes are available. Really?
Maybe.
Is anyone else having that issue? Put it in the comments and we'll see if we can fix it. I have been recording, so this will be available afterwards, but someone said, yes, it's a holding company. Okay, we're correct about the holding company.
Okay.
So one of the things that really, really interested me about this was like could Cohen just go and buy anything? Like how much rate could he go out and be like, okay, Shiba, that's it, we're gonna 2 billion.
I mean, he could. I think it's going to be something. So they're either going to acquire a whole bunch of little guys and make sort of a conglomerate of micro cap stocks, not too different than how Newell Brands has gathered up all of these different brands for product. They own Rubbermaid and Coleman and like all these recognizable brands. It's under one umbrella of a company. Like maybe GameStop goes for the brick and mortar version of that, and they buy up all of these brands people have an affinity for from like 20-30 years ago, and then revitalizes them. You throw in your Blockbuster and Radio Shack and Toys R Us and then you just make them a 21st century model, sort of like what he's been doing with GameStop. You make them lean and mean. You make them competitive for the modern age, and you tack on a whole bunch of sort of revenue value for a little bit of money. There are brick and mortars out there that are so incredibly undervalued that are very similar to how GameStop was. You can think about companies like Kohl's or Big Lots or stuff like, these are companies that do $5 billion a year in sales, and you can buy the entire company for $200 million, right? And then you can just streamline it and turn it exactly what GameStop is, which is, now they're down to $4 billion a year, but they're making a profit. And so they could do something like that. I'm sure we might find out this month as to what they're doing, but the infinite possibility that you can speculate on is just so vast that I can't decide as to what is the best, which one's most likely. What are they actually going to do? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see in the end. People do seem to be having tech issues with this stream, and I agree that I can only see the last 6 minutes. So I'm sorry, people, if this isn't working correctly. We do seem to be constantly cursed by tech gremlins. This is also why I don't tend to do live that often, because things like this happen. Anyway, the last thing I want to ask before we go, like I said, I am recording, so we will use this later, even if we don't get to do anything with it right now. It appears YouTube is having some tech issues. Probably Ken Griffin on the phone being like, shut down those people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to say, fuck you, Ken Griffin, smash the like button right now. So the last thing I want to ask about, and it's something someone put in the comments, actually was a good question. It's like, who pays for MOAS? Now, I remember we said that in the very first time we talked, you talked about the $63 trillion insurance policy at the DTCC. Yeah. Do you still believe that that is who ultimately will pay for MOAS?
It'll be a big chunk of it. The insurance, like, it's in quotation marks. So basically, if you remember the DTCC, your assets are sort of guaranteeing the assets of other members. And everybody is having this liability, which is probably why JP Morgan left in 2021. They pulled like every single solitary thing out of there, and now they're their own clearinghouse, just like Fidelity is. But if the members go down, their assets start having to get sold to pay for this stuff, they're going to go to the government and they're going to pressure them to just, drop interest rates, start printing. And that's what's going to be, because it'll be the banks going down. It'll be Goldman, it'll be JP Morgan, it'll be Merrill Lynch, it'll be, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America owns them, Chase owns JP Morgan. Like, these big banks are going to get vaporized and they're too big to fail. They've been said they're too big to fail for 17 years now. So, someone's going to have to make up for it, and it's going to be printing that's going to have to happen, because there's not enough cash or value in existence to make up for their liabilities. And so how is he going to do it? Start printing.
It'll be like have you seen that Mr. Beast video of him running with the money? That's how it's going to be. Trying to get out.
Yep. And especially since a lot of this wealth is overseas from where the liability is. Like, you'll have these hedge funds that are shorting. They take the cash and they put the cash into a Cayman account. And so when lenders look at their collateral, they include the Cayman account as the collateral. Well, if it comes time to take that collateral, they're just going to go snip and cut the little umbilical cord to that Cayman account, and no one's going to be able to claim it, because you're going to have to go through the Cayman courts and everything, and that's going to be notoriously awful. So, they'll just play in their ill-gotten cash out in the Caymans and never return, or what have you. So there's estimates between 40 and 80 trillion dollars been offshored by America's wealthy. So when you see like oh, Elon Musk is worth $200 billion, or Jeff Bezos is worth $200 billion, like, okay, those are the ones you know about. Yeah. There's a lot of guys on that Forbes list who are worth $1 billion, but they have 20 billion offshore somewhere.
Yeah, like most of like Bezos and like Musk's wealth, and like sort of people like that, like, is most of their wealth, like when they say they're worth like 200 billion, or is that mostly not just like the shares they have in the companies they own? Like, so it's not like
exactly the shares they have in the companies they own, but the traders, like the people who trade, they get cash off this stuff and they offshore it all the time, and it just disappears. Or they're doing their trading from offshore. So 40% of the U.S. stock market is overseas investors. Well, those overseas investors are American investors trading from overseas accounts. So, you get guys trading from the Bahamas, guys trading from the Caymans, etc. And the Cayman Islands has 60,000 people, but has umpteen $1 trillion in their banks. Like
zero tax.
Exactly. Zero tax, privacy. You can be the entire board of a company, and you can register it for like $3,000, and in another couple of weeks open a bank account and you're good. Right? And the Caymans will never reveal who you are to anyone ever.
No, because that's their entire industry. If they
Exactly.
fail, if they don't, their entire economy, which is now built on that, will collapse.
Yep.
Which is why they haven't been shut down yet.
Yeah.
Because they're like British overseas territories, a lot of the tax havens. And if the British went to them and went, lads, you need to cut this out, like stop with the financial fraud, like just please, we're turning over a new leaf, like this is ever going to happen, but we're turning over a new leaf, you need to cut out the fraud, like they'd be bankrupt in a week.
Yeah, or they would just be like, Viva la Revolution.
Yeah. No, but the best bit is like if Britain wants, they can't compel them to do anything unless they really want them to. But they don't really want them to, because that's where Britain hides all its money. Or
they just have to put the king on their currency, and that's pretty much the agreement they have. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. We're gonna be getting the new banknotes. I'm not ready for that. I want to keep the queen. I want to keep the queen on my banknotes, but anyway. Right. Whilst everything has gone beautifully and smoothly, I'm gonna
3167.
Yeah. Ooh. And as we come to the close of the day, I think it's a nice place to wrap things up. Everyone check out Houston's Twitter, YouTube, etc. I'll put links in the description below. I would assume quite a lot of you are here because of Houston anyway. I don't normally get this many live viewers on my streams. Although that said, I don't really tend to live stream very often. So if you would prefer me to live stream instead of like pre-recording, people, leave your comments down below and let me know what you think. Let us know what you think of GameStop this week, and when will be Moon.
All right. Well, we'll have you on my podcast again. We'll talk about the book.
Sounds good. Awesome. Fantastic. Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. It was a pleasure.
All right. See you my show later today.